Thank you for tuning in to K&S Society TALK Live. We are into our fourth broadcast this season, and I'd like to thank our supporters, Honesdale Cinema and Honesdale, PA. New screens, comfortable seating, cheap prices, and all the new movies. If you have entertainment viewing needs, visit Honesdale Cinema. If you're in the Route 6 Plaza in Honesdale, PA area, drop on in. Also, I'd like to thank Ultra Toxic Television. It's not art, it's exploitation. Ultra Toxic Television is, you can stream it on your Roku device by going to myvidportal.com. Once again, that's myvidportal.com.
It's vile. It's disturbing. It's offensive. It's Ultra Toxic Television, now banned in over 10 countries. Ultra Toxic Television, only on Roku. Get it at myvidportal.com. That's myvidportal.com. Ultra Toxic Television. It's not art, it's exploitation.
I warned you, didn't I? At least you noticed it, and you got out.
Should have seen them.
Who?
They were just standing there. The masks.
And the signs. They've always had those. They're just crazy. Don't worry about it, okay?
It's like they were staring straight into my soul.
And welcome to K&S Society TALK Live. I am your host, Don, along with Lucian Toombs.
Good evening, everybody.
And Peter Alden. And today we'll be joined by a great guest, Chris Moore, who has done a film, Blessed Are the Children, also has films in the work, Triggered, Confessions of a Horror, and A Star Is Stillborn. Chris Moore, are you on the air?
I sure am.
Hey, how you doing, Chris?
Welcome. I'm pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing great. And like I said, I've been following a lot of your updates on your films you have coming out. Bless the Children is doing really good. It looks like on Amazon and has a good rating on the IMDb.
Yeah, so far so good.
So tell us a little bit about the film. What brought you to make this film?
I hadn't done a feature film in quite a few years, and I had been trying to get something together, and it was around 2015, I think, and I was trying to get something together, and it was right around the time of the sort of 2016 election and stuff, and there was a lot of debate about abortion and stuff like that. And I remembered an idea that I had when I was in Catholic school, and it must have been about 7th or 8th grade, and because as a kid I didn't know much about the subject of abortion. But I got to this new Catholic school, and they kept talking about it all the time. And I was like, you guys are really starting to scare me, because that's all, like, they would just go on and on. And I thought, what if someone was, like, really, really against this, and they went, like, one step too far? And I thought, well, that's kind of a cool idea, but I kind of put it all off in the back of my head. And so this was about, like almost a decade after that, I would think, at least. And I thought, well, this would be a fun concept for a new movie. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll just do this one. And that's pretty much how it came to be.
And the topic was really interesting, but the story premises was really interesting as well. And you also had some great actors in it. Now, putting together an independent film, did you find it complicated at first to get everything together, to get the formula together and everything on the right track to move forward with this film?
Oh yeah. It's always tough. I was a little bit rusty because I hadn't really done much in a few years, and I'd mostly been doing stuff on stage, so that's very, very different. And so I decided I was going to use mostly sort of stage actors. Firstly, because they tend to know their lines, and that's great, and they're always on time, and so it just works. It works out a lot smoother that way. And in terms of finances and locations and stuff, I mean, really, I wrote the script based on what I knew I could use. So I would say, well, I bet my one friend would let me use his apartment for, one night or two. So I'll write a scene at an apartment, or my other friend has this house. I'll use that house. So it was all kind of written for very specific locations that I knew I could use. So that helped a lot, an awful lot.
And I know how making an independent film, finances and such, the budget is the biggest factor. Did you have a good budget for this film, or was it? So
no,
did it have a good budget?
No? We had. I think it cost about $1.29. I don't know. It was not. It was pretty meager. It was. I think the final total was about $1,000, which is unheard of. But the thing was that everyone kind of just pitched in, and no one got paid. I don't think anyone got a dime. It was just like, it was almost like, let's just see if we can do this and have some fun. And that's pretty much what we did. It was kind of like just putting on a play. We just thought, let's have some fun and just sort of see if we can do this.
Mm-hmm. I know that feeling because I just got done wrapping up. I did the film Eddie, which was my project, and it didn't cost a dime. It was like no budget, and we went out there and filmed. But we were originally going to do a film called Don't Turn Around, and for some reason location didn't scout out, so we had to go ahead and just strap that, and we mostly improvised and built this film from the ground up, and it did a great job. But independent filmmaking is a tough thing to do, but it's really fun, and it's really a great process and a learning process.
Absolutely, it's so tough, and locations are incredibly tough because in my last film, I had written a scene that was supposed to take place in a school after dark. And it was a pretty major scene. I mean, it was this huge set piece, and for one reason or another, we couldn't secure a school, so we had to rewrite the entire thing, and then we scouted for locations, and we got this house, and then the night before we were going to shoot, they said, our friend is coming into town, and so we can't really let you use the house. And I was like, it's tomorrow, so what am I going to do here? So we had to find a house that night, and so I hadn't really planned any of the shots because I had planned them all with the other house, and so that was a disaster. I mean, that was probably one of the worst nights of my life because it was just, I was running around not having any idea where I was or how to really make this scene work, and it was really just a disaster. So it's really important to have a nice, secure location, or else you're just like completely doomed. It's just the worst.
Yeah, memories. I mean, there's none. I've been in those predicaments, and you really feel that tension and stress. But then when it's all done with, you look back and you say, "You did it. You got through it. You did it.
Yeah.
And now you want to go on to the next one." Now,
exactly.
The Blessed of the Children seems like it has that slasher tone. It also has a feel like a good 80s tone as well, with the way you did the cinematography and the shooting the film and such. Can you give us a little insight on what Bless the Children's about? Like a little bit of a pinpoint, not giving away the story, but giving away a pinpoint of what the sums up what the film's about.
Sure, yeah. It is about a young woman who is kind of having a rough go. Her father just passed away recently. Her mom isn't really much of a help. And she has just gotten out of a very abusive relationship with her fiance, who's just this big drunk. And at the moment, she's having this kind of a sort of a friends with benefits relationship with this guy who's just kind of a douche. You know, he's really just awful. And then she discovers that she's pregnant. And considering that her life is not exactly on the best track, she decides to get an abortion. And while she's there, she's kind of stalked by these creepy pro-life types that are in these very spooky masks. And then they proceed to follow her to her new house, which she shares with her two best friends, and then from there things get progressively spookier.
Since you're on the topic of horror and you're directing horror, is there any inspirations for you that, you know, once you jumped into the genre, what would you say your biggest inspirations were when you signed on to the project?
Oh man, well, there's a lot of there's a lot of sort of 80s-ish elements to the film, but honestly, I feel like I was mostly inspired by those kinds of like really strange 70s films that always felt kind of unpredictable. Like you thought you thought you knew where it was going to go, and then it would go into this completely different direction. And I liked that sort of strange 70s vibe. Like I was mostly inspired by things like Alice, Sweet Alice, the Redeemer, these smaller films that a lot of people haven't really
Alice,
heard
Sweet
of.
Alice is with Brooke Shields, right?
Yes, that's right.
That's, okay, I remember the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, and Black Christmas, lots of things like that. I mean, of course, there's some Halloween in there, and some Psycho, Dress to Kill. I mean, there's a lot of little nods to a lot of things, but just the basic tone and kind of style, I always kind of went more towards that sort of 70s grindhousey feel, where you're always kind of on your toes.
And the one thing interesting with all the ones you mentioned, like Dress to Kill, Alice, Sweet Alice, they all have that kind of suspenseful thriller Hitchcock vibe to them. A lot of those films were inspired by Hitchcock. So would you say like you were really inspired by his films as well? I know you mentioned Psycho.
Oh God, yes, absolutely. Oh no, I mean I my grandmother kind of got me onto the sort of Hitchcock train when I was probably about 5 or 6. So I was very much a big fan of his, and yeah.
So basically horror, thriller, suspense.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because you know, it's like I didn't want to make kind of a typical slasher film, in the sense that I didn't want to just make something where all of the characters don't really have much going on, and you don't really care when they die. In fact, sometimes you just kind of would like to laugh because you don't really feel much for them, so you don't care when they're killed. And I think a lot of the slasher films kind of do that. They're not really, you don't connect to the characters, therefore you don't really feel suspense. You don't get scared, and you just don't really feel much. And so I tried to stay away from that if I could, just because it's not something I find terribly interesting. Although I love to watch them. I mean, I really do. I think they're so much fun. But just personally, I felt like, well, if I'm gonna make a film, I feel like it needs to be about something more than just like body count.
Yeah. There you go.
Another quick question. You mentioned earlier you used a lot of stage actors. Did you guys do any kind of a lot? Did you guys really depend on a lot on the rehearsal process, or did you guys go straight into shooting?
You know, we had no time, so rehearsal was kind of was a luxury occasionally, and on some scenes we actually would do a rehearsal, but we would also film it just in case we had to use something from that, because I have learned always shoot the rehearsals, because you never know what you're going to get, because everyone's still really fresh, and it's the first time they've really done the scene, so there's kind of a strange, like, nervous energy that can be really great. And there have been times when I've been like, okay, well, the takes that we did were great, but honestly, the rehearsal was the best one. So I will use that.
Because I agree. Sometimes you'd shoot when rehearsing, or when off camera sometimes, and you get that footage that it's just real. It's just pure. It's real, right. And they're going over they're acting out, and you see that footage, and you're like, I like that footage better than the footage I shot for the film. So sometimes you alter it and edit it in there. Yeah, I did the same thing, and it works really well. And you introduced I love the principle you used with the baby mass killings. I think that added to the film, where it had that iconic, like not iconic look, but you know how you have your Michael Myers in his white mask. You have this. You put that image in your film with the baby mask killing, which really shined out with that production. I like that.
Oh, good.
Wouldn't that be
Thank
a
you
knock
so
at
much.
Alice Sweet Alice baby mask as well, didn't they?
Yeah, she had the clear mask.
It was that it was like that clear, like that clear kind of it was almost like a drag queen mask. Like it was that weird blue eye shadow and bright red lips. Very creepy, just very weird.
You could buy them at a Walmart or a drugstore, like the cheap masks you buy. They used that for Alice Sweet Alice, and it worked.
Yeah.
And that was really
it was
really good in the film.
It was great.
And Lucien, we have Lucien as one of our hosts. Lucien, do you have any questions for Chris?
Oh, I just enjoy listening to him talk about the whole creative process, because I've done some stage acting myself, and I definitely agree with him about the rehearsal process, in that you get those moments that, I don't know, just somehow just pop big time when you're rehearsing, as opposed to like when you go and do the actual performance itself. I mean, I've been in a few films. I've been in a few plays where I wish we could have videotaped the rehearsals because rehearsals are fantastic.
Exactly, and it's strange because there's something about when you finally figure out just the right way to do a line, and it's the first time, and you can't really recapture that as well.
It's lightning in a
and
bottle.
so
Yeah.
to get that on film it's like a gift.
Oh.
And as one independent, like a director from to another, like when you're out walking and you see it could be under the street lights, or it could see a certain set shadow or a certain scene that you're looking at, a scenario. Does that help with your inspiration? I noticed that somewhat following your posts and that you do seem to be picked up on that. So you see a right moment in time, and you're it inspires you to get the pen out, to get on your laptop and start writing about it, or this is what I want to go for. Did that help with Blessed Are the Children?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, completely. I like to go for really long walks, and I have my my iPod, and it's amazing what ideas come into your head when you're doing that. And there have been times when I've been working on a script for months and months and months, and I'm like, I don't know how to crack it. There's just one scene that's not really working, or I feel like I've got a really good act 1 and part of 2, but the rest just doesn't really come together. And then I go on a walk, and all of a sudden something pops into my head, and I say, well, what if she did this? And what if he did that after she did this? And then you just get so excited because it just suddenly just comes out of nowhere. It's unbelievable. And it's great, but the problem is that you can never really predict when it's going to happen. So, there's this one script that I just completed, and I'm in pre-production with it now, and it was a script I started probably about 5 years ago, I think, and I could never crack it until probably about a few months back, and it just started to just pour out of me. But you have to wait. You have to be very patient.
And that film that you're talking about, is that happen to be Triggered, or is that the Confessions of a Harbor Baby?
It's called A Stranger Among the Living.
And I think I've been following your posts on that one also. You've been talking about a little bit about it and ideas and that. Because I'm always, like I say, for those of you listening that are friends with Chris on his Facebook or social media accounts and stuff like, he is just so vigilant when it comes to his direction of where he wants to approach his films. And I give you very high compliments on that one, because you're really you have that good vision when it comes to film. And like Blessed Are the Children, I had a chance to watch it on Amazon, and I loved it. I thought, in my own opinion, it had that 70s vibe. It had that good, the way you had that grindhouse look, and it was like watching one of those great movies back in the 70s and 80s. You really did a good job with that.
Oh, thank you so much.
So I actually have a question. Since we've seen kind of a renaissance again in horror recently, is there any horror films that you've seen in the last, 2 or 3 years that have really stood out or that you really enjoyed?
Let me think. I know I really loved Hereditary. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, it was a masterpiece.
The ending I'm still sort of on the fence about. It's kind of it just builds up so beautifully, and then there's this ending that I've kind of warmed up to it a bit, but I remember when I first watched it, I was like, that's it? Okay, I guess that they just really wrapped that up in a nice, tidy little bow, and it seemed like it was going towards kind of a more like psychological, like mind fuck kind of thing, and then at the end it was just like, oh, it was just typical kind of like made for TV sort of Satanist kind of thing. It just was. It seemed like it was almost too simple. I guess I was just expecting something more, maybe more ambiguous. But besides that, I just thought it was just exquisite. I mean, it was just beautifully made, and the acting was out of this world. Why Toni Collette does not have a Oscar nom for that part, I will never know, because she was brilliant.
Yeah, she did get. I do agree with you on that. She was probably the most underrated performance of last year. And I think I don't know whether it was the fact that it came out in March, because if you remember, it came out. It got noticed at Sundance, and then it kind of came around. It got noticed at Sundance. Came around. I think April, maybe May, June. I'm not sure. But that's the one thing about horror, is that sometimes it does get overlooked with the Oscars. I felt last year there was a great representation of horror. We had.
Yes, I was very surprised.
Yeah, Get Out got nominated, but definitely one of the best performances of last year in my book. I agree with you.
Absolutely. I mean, it's unbelievable, and I just don't get why. Because I would say horror and comedy are typically the ones that the Academy just doesn't seem to get, and I don't know why. I have no idea. And I mean, but this was the bravest, most committed performance I have ever seen, and nothing. I'm like, I don't get it. I just don't. So.
And then, what's your take on? I know I watched this film once. I talked to Peter about it. I wasn't that fond about the first time, but then I watched it the second time and I really liked it. What's your take on the remake of Suspiria?
I just watched it for the first time. It was either last week or the week before, and I'm a huge freakish fan of the original. So I was kind of like, I don't know what to expect here, but I knew they were going to be taking it in a very different direction, which I was glad. And I, on the whole, really, really liked it. The problem for me was that it has this subplot that does not need to be in the film whatsoever. And it brings the film to a screeching halt every single time they go back to that storyline. And I just thought, why is this here? I don't get it. It made no sense. However, everything else I really did like. I thought the acting was great. I thought it was beautifully shot. Stylistically very different from the original film. But it had that kind of sort of drab 70s feel, which I loved. The music was great. Choreography was unbelievable. But it just, I feel like if they could cut maybe like 30 minutes, I think it would be like a masterpiece. But as is, it's like it's one of those movies. Like, am I going to watch it again? It's kind of, I'm not really sure.
See, that's why I liked it, though. You see, the thing is, for me, with the Suspiria remake, personally, I felt like if they tried to make another Suspiria, I don't think you would have been able to capture that aura. You see, what I like so much about this remake is, if you remember the original, it was very Fellini. You had a lot of bright colors. You had a lot of bright reds. Well, this one was very dull, and I felt that what I found so brave about the Suspiria remake was that it paid homage to the original, but it made it a totally different film. It felt like I was watching a Ken Russell movie. It didn't feel like a Dario Argento.
It did really feel like a Ken Russell film.
Yeah, no,
it really
that's
did.
what I liked about it. I see the argument of, was it like, it's almost a 3-hour movie. Let's be honest here. It's a 3-hour movie.
2.5 at least.
Yeah, it's 2.5. I remember when I went to see it with my wife, I looked at the running time and I was like, 2 hours 40 minutes. Like, I was like, whoa, But I was like, you know what? This is a superior. Like, that's one of the reasons it grabbed me. I was like, a 2-hour and 40-minute horror movie. That's pretty bold. I'm not sure if it's ever been done.
Very much so.
But when I watched it, I drew to it right away. I really, really like it. Is it a slow burn? Yes. Would you consider it a full-on horror movie? It is a horror movie, but there are elements of it's very dramatic. Right. It's also almost like a period piece as well. So I can see why the reviews were mixed. But one thing I will say about the Suspiria remake was critically acclaimed, and people were saying that there were shots of the main actress or supporting actress who played a bunch of different roles. I forget her name off the top of my head. Tilda I forget. But they were saying that she might get nominated, and it was good to see it on a couple of people's top 10s list. So
yeah,
but it was one of those films where you can't. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I was just going to say I really did enjoy it for the most part because it dared to do something completely different, and I think if you're going to remake anything, that's what you need to do, because we've seen the other one, and if we want to see that, we can just watch that. So there's no point.
And it's definitely a movie you have to watch with no one else in the room. Just focus on it, because when I was watching, I had my brother, I had people in the room, and I couldn't concentrate, and I turned my head, then go back 1 minute and watch, and there's an old man naked on an altar, and I'm like, where the hell did this come from? What the hell happened?
Definitely not one of those movies where you can't be not concentrated. It is a slow burn. I don't recommend you watching it at like 1 a.m.
No, that might be a bad idea.
Yeah, I would recommend definitely watching it like where you're very concentrated, earlier time, you're not sleepy, because it is a very slow burn. It is very deep. It is, and let's be honest, until the ending, I don't want to give anything away, it doesn't really get over the top until the last maybe 20, 30 minutes of the movie, but it's a very subtle movie. While the original is super over the top. It's super stylized. Every scene, has a super bright color going on, while this is a lot more subtle, a lot more paced out. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Two totally different movies. You couldn't even get a polar opposite of style and pacing.
I do think that in the years to come, this will be a very culty film, because there's some stuff in this that is just really stunning. Because there's the one scene in particular that I was blown away by was there's the character of Olga, her demise of sorts. It's not really a demise. It's much worse. And when she is tossed through the room and she's like torn apart, I was like, what in the hell is this? Who even thought of this? It was one of the most disturbing things I have ever seen in my entire life, and that alone lets me know that this will not be a forgotten film.
You made a very interesting point there. Point there that over the years you think it's going to get a cult following, and I agree with you, because a lot of more experimental horror movies like the Jodorowsky movies. I think Mother is also going to be in that category as well.
I agree.
A film
I completely do.
A film that on its release mixed reviews, but 8 to 10 years later, it's going to be seen as a masterpiece. And Jodorowsky's films were very much like that. Some of the greatest horror films were a lot like that, where it was upon release kind of overlooked. Then 10 years later, it's seen as a masterpiece. Even like, we made that connection with Ken Russell. Another great example would be The Devil.
God, yeah.
Devil, 1972. When that came out, people were like, you know what? This is gross. This is blasphemy.
Oh, God, yeah.
This is, now it's being studied in film schools, universities all over the world. So
it's unbelievable. And to me, I think that's probably better than opening at like number one at the box office and everyone just loving it, and then 5 years down the road, everyone's kind of forgotten about it, because at least these cult films have a really great shelf life, and they'll always be there.
Why do you think that happens, though? Like, you see, here's the thing. Like, for example, we'll throw Mother in the mix. When Mother first came out, most horror fans that I know disliked it.
Right.
And I wonder why. Like, why is it that when a film is so daring, horror fans tend to just say, you know what, this is garbage. I don't get it. What would you say? Why would you say that people are like that, or why do you think that's the first reaction?
I'm going to say this, and as a whole, I think horror fans are some of the most amazing, thoughtful, brilliant people I have ever met in my life. But on the other hand, there is a sect of horror fandom that has a very narrow view as to what makes a horror film. And typically to them, it is tits and blood. If you try to do anything besides that, they freak the fuck out. And they say, this isn't horror. This is stupid. There's, like, dialogue and, like, characters and like, I don't know what they're doing there. Like, can't you just do, like, Friday the 13th Part 28? And it's like, that is a perfectly lovely franchise. I enjoy them very much. But there's more to horror than just that. And I think there's a lot of people who have this very constrictive idea about what horror is and what it can do.
No, I definitely agree with you. And I think that's why 70s was such a great year for horror, because you saw a lot more dramatic horror movies coming out.
Completely.
And
yeah, like
they were films that can really those were films that could really, when you were watching it, the average person who wasn't just a horror fan, just a fan of cinema, could relate to those characters and could relate to those films. And I think that when you kind of departed from those kind of films, when films couldn't become relatable anymore for the average person, it stopped becoming scary. It stopped becoming effective, and then it became its own niche kind of market. And that's why I think for the last 20 years, or maybe even more, 30 years, it was kind of a genre that was frowned upon. And I feel like in the last 3 to 4 years, we've seen a renaissance in horror again, where it's not just made for the horror fan. It's made for film fans, people who love cinema.
Exactly. And I do think there has been a backlash from horror fandom because of this. I think they kind of thought, well, this is kind of our thing, so we don't really want 100%. You guys to get into this. And it's very strange. And I was talking to someone recently, and I we were talking about the film Carrie, and I was like, that's one of my favorite films of all time. And he was like, really? Like, it's not scary, and it's like really, really, like, it's just super dull. Like, it's really boring. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
I know.
Like, what? And it's just like, well, it didn't scare me, so therefore, like, it must not really be a horror film, therefore it sucks as a horror film. I'm like, no, that's not. Horror is great because it's a very broad genre. And there's a lot that you can do.
Carrie still scares me today. Like, that's a pretty creepy movie.
Especially that scene at the grave.
Oh, God. Oh,
and like, with horror, like you said, a lot of people expect to see tits and ass and blood and all that stuff. But a lot of the great films that came out, like, let's take When a Stranger Calls with Carol Kane. There was no nudity, but it was a great story. Awesome suspense, build up, good horror, one of the best. Another film that had a little mixture of both, but had a lot of blood, a little bit of nudity, was Maniac in 1980s. That film there was a success, but it wasn't based mostly on the probably the graphicness of it. It was more or less what was through the mind of a psychotic, someone who went ahead and schizophrenic, someone who went through those stages.
That also had like a scary baby mask as well, didn't it? Maniac. It had one of those weird. He was wearing one of those weird masks, like in Sweet Alice.
Yeah,
there might have been a scene where he did. I'm trying to remember.
He was, the Sweet Alice type masks he was wearing, but I love that principle. And then, like you said, the 70s brought a lot of great horror that inspired other films, but then it got into more the TNA and the splatter and the gore, and the fans just looked at that as being the essence of horror, which I think the essence of horror is the suspense build up, the atmosphere you put it in, everything gelled in. Like, that's why you mentioned the movies like Mother and Carrie. You mentioned Suspiria.
Well,
those films
Go ahead, Keith. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Yeah, like, I think another one, like, a lot, like, to kind of play off what we were talking about earlier, like, Get Out is another one. Like, you ask most horror fans, I would say 9 out of 10 horror fans think it's absolute garbage.
Oh yeah.
And even if you think it's garbage, you have to give it its recognition in the sense that it's a horror film that got nominated for Best Picture, which paves the way for more which paves the way for more horror films to be taken seriously. I think the last horror film that was nominated for a Best Picture was, again, I could be wrong, I'd have to look up, would be The Exorcist. And
I mean, because there's Silence of the Lambs, but a lot of people don't consider that
Silence of the Lambs
horror
too.
film.
Yeah, 100%. That would probably be the last one, and that won. But that is very thriller.
Actually did win. Right.
And that is very thriller. But you know what? Some of the best horror films have thriller elements in it.
I think so too, completely.
So it's just to see films like. But then again, Get Out was another film, which was you ask 9 out of 10 horror fans, what do you think of it? And it's garbage. But I do remember when Silence of the Lambs did come out. It was one of those movies that when it actually got nominated, and it was when it got nominated for all its awards, people were very, very shocked. And I remember if I remember it right, it came out earlier in the year, and then it actually got a re-release closer to December. And a lot of critics were very mixed on it when it first came out. But then, it really did gain some buzz, and it did win the Oscar.
It's very strange because, I mean, for me, I seem to recall a time when horror fans were so pissed off because everything that was coming out was either a remake or it was rated like PG-13. And now we have all of these original films that are all pretty much, for the most part, rated R, and they're still complaining. I mean, they'll always find something to complain about.
Well, the thing with horror, the thing with horror is, it's like you said, like horror fans like it when horror movies are made just for them. It's like they want to know the inside joke. They want to be on the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those weird things. And then 10 years later, movies like Mother, movies like Suspiria that were panned upon its release, 10 years later seen as a masterpiece. Like Jodorowsky is the prime example of that. All of those films when they first came out, Holy Mountain, Santa Sangra, all these films when they first came out were pretty much panned by the people who follow the genre. Now they're seen as masterpieces, so who knows?
Exactly. And I will also say this, horror fans are strange because you can make a film that has really great characters and atmosphere, and then you'll test it, and people will, probably say, well, it feels a little slow, so if you could cut some of this stuff out, and just really get to the good stuff sooner, it would be fantastic. So you do that, and then they come and they say, well, there's no character development. I can't watch this. This is ridiculous. And you're like, well, you made me take it out because you wanted all of the gore and stuff, So you just can't really win. And I think the only thing you can do is just make a film that you would personally want to go see. That's all you can do.
And
did you like the recent Halloween movie?
Well, how much time do we have left? Because this could take a while.
Speak as much as you want.
I did not care for it, and okay. I'm going to start with the positive because I firmly believe that every film has at least a few things that you could say were very good. I loved the way that they portrayed Michael. I thought he looked great. He moved terrific. I thought the score was phenomenal. It had some good moments of atmosphere. I liked the relationship between the babysitter and the kid that she was watching. I thought that was great. Besides those two, it felt like those were the only two normal human interactions in the entire film. Everything else to me felt like kind of this cliched action film. I didn't care about anyone. There was no suspense. There were no scares. Even the character of Laurie Strode felt almost kind of unlikable because I thought, okay, well, in the of other films, she was depicted as someone who was just trying her best to survive. She was just trying to run away from the threat. And in this film,
she was sweet and innocent.
From the start of the film, it's like she's prepared, and you never really feel like she's not going to win. You're like, I think she can probably take him. There's never that that moment of doubt in the film, and for me, that kind of killed it.
Yeah, but for me, I'll be honest with you. I saw it at the Toronto Film Festival. I remember when we were talking about the film, prior to it. I remember, Keith and Lucian can attest to it. I was like, you know what? We've seen, the original Halloween is so elegant that I don't think you could ever match it. The second one, wasn't bad. Third one was really cool. But then past that, it was pretty garbage. This is what I will say about this Halloween. I thought it was better than the Rob Zombie ones, but that's not saying much.
Oh, God, yeah.
But that's not saying much. I will say the first 3 minutes of it were brilliant. The first 2 minutes of it, where they go to the psychiatric ward, and they created such an element of intensity for the first 2 or 3 minutes of the movie. But then past that, I felt like I was watching a cheap 2001 slasher horror movie. The characters were like, you had your token stoner, you had your token jerk dude, you had your token slut, you had your token smart girl. And like you said, I didn't have a moment where I didn't think that Laurie Strode wasn't going to take out or kill Michael Myers.
Exactly.
Now, it felt like an action movie more than a horror movie, and that sometimes works. That worked with Phantasm. That worked with Alien, but it just didn't work.
Exactly. It and I think had it just been called like Halloween 9, I would have been like, okay, not too bad. I mean, it was better than Resurrection, but like it was just kind of, I think because they talked so much about how we're going to go back to the basics and it's going to be pure suspense and scares, and then it was like none of that. And I was like, I don't understand what got lost in translation here. But it just felt like
but you made an interesting point there, and I totally agree with you that they're going back with the basics, but I totally agree with you. They totally didn't, in the sense that, like, when you look at the original movie, it's very, very minimal. Very minimal.
Very much so.
But at the same time, it's really, really tight. It's a really tight picture. And it's funny because you had mentioned earlier, you were mentioning earlier, like, movies like The Problem is Dressed to Kill. You had mentioned a lot of those kind of films. A lot of those kind of films were inspired by Hitchcock.
Of course.
And the original Halloween, very heavily influenced by Hitchcock. And I felt that to really capture that same vibe that you had mentioned earlier, they kind of had to draw roots to its Hitchcockian ways. And it just totally wasn't. It felt like an action movie. It felt like it was just like, Michael Myers, like, it's like, Freddy versus Jason, Michael Myers versus Laurie Strode. And it just totally fell flat. Totally fell flat.
I think, in my opinion, I think they should have picked it up right after the second movie and not after the first one. It would have patched a lot of holes of Donald Pleasance. It would have patched a lot of holes with Dr. Loomis' characters being gone, all that stuff, the fight in the hospital, the explosion. But they picked it up after the original. They didn't show anything.
Or they could have not made the movie and done something original.
Well, my thing is that H2O has a lot of things that are very, very wrong, but the character of Laurie is treated very interestingly. You can see that she has been someone who has been trying against all odds to keep herself sane, and there's a great arc where she finally stops and says, I'm not going to keep on running. And then she finally has her big, Sigourney Weaver action scene. And it's great because it's actually built up to. With this, it was like the first time you see her on screen, you're like, okay, this is a chick who's ready to kick some ass. Like there was no build,
I agree. And that's what to go back on the topic of what you created with Blessed Are the Children, you went in, you brought an element of drama, horror, suspense, and you threw it all in there, and which came out really great. Also, the actors you used, like you said, you brought them in from plays and so forth. They really knew how to portray the characters. You worked on your character development. You built your characters. You liked your characters. and that was really phenomenal what you did there. So
Thank you.
summing up all these films, and with all the knowledge and horror that you have, and also the ways you like Hitchcock and so forth that you were inspired by, what is your next project going to be?
Well, my next film is kind of it's something I haven't really done before, which is kind of a sort of supernatural movie. I'm kind of calling it a cross between like Carnival of Souls and like Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Like it's a very moody, spooky kind of a movie, and it's there's no guys with knives and masks. It's just a very atmospheric sort of a spooky film, and it's basically about a teacher who has this dream that sort of freaks him out, and he decides to not go into work. And while he's not there, there's a school shooting, and so of course he survives and kind of cheats death. And then pretty soon after that, these figures start to sort of stalk him, and he has to kind of figure out why this is happening and if he can stop it. And it's a very spooky kind of a movie.
Well, put me down for a copy right now because I love Carnival of Souls and Let's Hear Jessica.
Oh, good. Yes. Okay, you are gonna love it then.
Beautiful.
And are you going to be using a lot of the same actors you had in Blessed are the Children?
There are a few that have signed on, but right now we're mostly doing a casting call. So it's like the first week, and I've gotten a bunch of submissions, and so we're going to see where that goes. But it's I think so far. I think there's maybe 5 that were in Blessed that'll probably be in this too.
You had a good lineup of actors in your film. You had a lot of good actors.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Now, on Blessed are the Children, are you ever looking into doing a sequel or a spin-off of that film?
Well, as a rule, I'm not a big fan of sequels, but I got an idea a few months back, and I typed it out. It's very, very thin at the moment, but just a basic concept on what I would do if I was to do one. But that's probably further down the road. I'm not sure if it's going to be something even within like the next 5 years. It's just kind of something that I thought, well, if this goes well, I might want to sort of think about it.
Now let's talk about Triggered. Triggered is another film you're working on.
Right.
Want to tell us a little bit about that film?
Sure. Now, Triggered is kind of a dark comedy, kind of in the same sort of arena as like Heathers, and it's about a young girl, a young high school girl, who is always trying to sort of stand out in some way. And right now, she's really into sort of this like sort of social justice kind of stuff. And pretty much everyone at the school despises her because she's always trying to say that this is racist or sexist or whatever when it's not. And eventually there's this killer who has resurfaced in the town after about 30 years, and he was never caught. And she gets the idea that to help promote herself and her cause, she should pretend to be attacked by the killer and then get all of this attention. So she does it, and then the real killer is not too thrilled with this and starts to come after her. So it's very, very funny. It's very fun. I would never say it's a very scary film, but there's elements of, like a kind of a slashery, murder mystery thriller thingy, and it's just a lot of fun. We had a blast. It should be coming out from Wild Eye. I think the date is June 11th. I think.
And you have a lot of good actors in that one too. You have Meredith Muller, Jesse Dalton, Sam Furman. Now, did you find that more complicated to film than Blessed Are the Children?
Very much so. Yeah, it's a much bigger ensemble cast, and we had a lot of locations and a lot more costumes, a lot more of everything. So it was much more of a kind of a juggling act, and we I want to say we shot that film in maybe 13, 14 days, and it was a much more ambitious film. So it was really, really tough, but it was so much fun.
And to take a step back, in 2014, you made a film called A Star Is Still Born. And that was Frank Mancini. Now, how was that different than the films you made previous to when you made that film?
That was a film that was made. It was kind of cobbled together from a web show that my friend and I did when I was in North Carolina, and it's kind of it's a comedy about this stage dad who is sort of pimping his kids out in this kind of really tacky boy band, and it's basically him trying to sort of live vicariously through his kids. So it's a comedy, but it's also it gets fairly dark, and it was an interesting experience. There was a lot of stuff that I liked about it, but as a whole, I just I don't know. It just didn't quite turn out exactly as I had hoped, and I think I was a little too young for the part at the time. So I would almost like to do that again in maybe 5 or 10 years, and really just do it right.
And then you went off and before that you went on and you did it was what was it, the web series, was that Confessions of a Horror Baby that you're talking about there? They were episodic.
I did that. I was really bored in the summers between my my time at college, and a friend of mine said, "You watch the weirdest films, and I think you should do a kind of some kind of a a film review show." And so I tried it out. I think there's 2 seasons, I think. I want to say I covered maybe 10 films. And it was really fun because it was a review show, but I would do little musical bits, and I would have these little jokes and stuff. It was really fun, but it was actually really hard work. And so I was going to do a season 3, and then stuff just kind of got a little too much. And but never say never. I just don't really enjoy reviewing films as much now, because my style is always it's a bit different, because I'm always trying to find things that I love about everything that I watch, because I really do think that there's at least one thing that is worthwhile in every film, even the worst of the worst.
And it's interesting because it's like with doing the episodic stuff. Like I did the Dawn of the Dead show, which was a horror hosting show where I introduced films and they played and I cut in between and did my parodies and so forth in between, making fun of them and so forth. And like you said, it is really complicated to do because you're on a schedule. You want to get at least sometimes 8 to 10 episodes out a season, sometimes less, depending on how you go.
Yeah.
And then you're pushing it. But then you start thinking to yourself, I want to make a feature film. And you grab a camera, you get out there, you start pushing, and that's where you start back with that first film, and then you went on to doing Blessed of the Children, then you're going on to Triggered. It develops. You get that knack of filmmaking. It always starts from somewhere. And now your love for film, growing up, did you have this passion for film? Did you have this passion to entertain?
I always knew I wanted to entertain in some way. I didn't know if it was going to be like as an actor or as a director, but I mean, I've been acting, writing, directing since I was probably, 5 or 6. I mean, it's always been a thing, even before I really knew what to call it, I guess. But like my first film, I think I made when I was 10 on my family's camcorder, and it was just it's one of the worst things that you'll ever see in your life. I think it was a kind of a Scream fan film, and it was called Killer, which is such a great name, and it was pretty much just my friends and I, and we would just sort of improvise it as we went. And since this was before home editing became so affordable, to get music in the film, we would have my mom with a boombox, and she would just press play, and then that's how we would get the music. So it was just so ridiculous. I mean, it was just
that's so many memories.
You don't have to be so hard on yourself. You're only 10 years old.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
like
that's what I did. Is I went out there with my cousins and friends and took my camera out. And
people do.
Back then, like you said, you didn't have the music. You didn't have access to what we have now with editing software and computers. So you had to improvise. And all your acting was improvised. Your credits were even like on paper. You wrote down your credits and showed them and scrolled them through.
They were, yeah.
It was just so. But you have to look at it is that they're so shitty, but yet they're so fun to look back at. And you look at yourself saying that everyone starts off at some point. A director starts off making home films. Look at John Carpenter did Doc Star when he was in college and so forth. You if you have that passion for filmmaking, you just grab a camera and you get out there and do it. And sooner or later, you're going to start evolving yourself and teaching yourself and learning the new techniques. Because, I mean, when when Adobe came out and Final Draft, and then you got access to other stuff, you look at it and now anyone can make a film. It just takes that passion, the writing, and so forth to go forth and do it. And I remember, like you said, making your original film, The Killer, when you were young. I made a film that was called A Nightmare, which I used duct tape as the person's mask and duct taped all this shit. I mean, it looked terrible, and it had a terrible plot. I don't think it had a plot. I don't think it had a story, but it was
I don't
just
think mine
fun.
did either.
And then you go out there and you start developing that technique and learning, and you see a camera, you grab it, and you grab the next best thing, you get out there and film with it, and you keep going. And sooner or later, you start making films.
I do think that it was fascinating when I got to film school that there were a lot of kids there who had never even touched a camera. And I was like, you're 18, and how do you know you want to do film if you've never actually even tried to make one, like even just a terrible one, you know? And that just fascinated me. I just thought, how can you know? And most of those I don't think have really gone on to do anything, but the ones that were like, yeah, I started out when I was like 12, and I've made a bunch of stuff. It might suck, but I've made stuff. They're still doing stuff.
Yeah, that's weird because I found when I went to film school, I found the same thing. Like when I went to film school, like I always felt like I kind of had the edge because I was shooting stuff and I was watching Laserdiscs before DVDs had even come out. And I remember commentary was like a new thing for Laserdiscs.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember learning techniques through my commentary Laserdiscs and actually trying to use them, trying to use it with, my dad's little shitty camcorder. But I always felt like when you went to film school, I mean, going to film school is like, I don't know. I went to film school. I even have a master's in film as well. But it was always one of those things like, it's like going to school to become a rock star. Either you got it or you don't, you know? And I felt like so too. School, I think film school was just one big pissing contest, you know? It was just like, everybody against each other. Yep.
I feel like I'm out of this whole conversation. It's like I never went to film school. I just like.
And you don't really need to, Keith. That's the thing. When I went to film school.
Bud Cooper, the director of The Mutilator, I would be on the phone with him for hours, longtime friend, and he'll be advising me on what to do, and I'll be sending my scripts back and forth to him, and he'll be editing them and saying, no, this is what you have to fix, and this is what you have to do, and that's how I learned how to get better at making my films and going forth with what I want to do.
That's amazing.
I wish I went to film school,
that's a really cool story. Wow.
But you're like that in music too, isn't it? Peter does a lot of great music. He just got picked up by a lot of great labels. But Peter, you're like that in music also, weren't you? When you had to sample and you trained yourself and you learned the craft.
Music was a weird thing. Music is my profession now. It's what I do for a career. But the way I actually got into music, I went to film school at Ryerson. I was getting my master's. And I just started to sneak into the audio engineering class because I thought it was kind of cool. And then, I just kind of like learned a couple of things in there, like kind of the basics from Pro Tools. And then, I would just sample movies, kind of like, making music is a lot like editing, essentially. And because I had known Avid, because that was the standard back then for editing movies. I don't know what it is now. Making music was very, it kind of came natural to me, and I was, it was one of those things where I was able to pick up very fast, and but I started really, really ghetto, like just, sampling stuff, and then, growing from there.
Oh, yeah, I mean, because I do think that everyone has to start out and you have to learn from all of the mistakes that you make. And I think the good thing is that I can see that with every film I'm just getting better. And I think that's the trick. As long as you're not, just kind of peaking or, God forbid, just sort of plateauing, I think that's the important part.
And Lucian, you were in you did stage acting, didn't you, Lucian? So you went through a similar ordeal also. We're learning as you go along.
Well, I tell you, I wouldn't exactly call it an ordeal. I'm my own worst critic. I mean, there was a film that I did a couple years back. I had a lead role in it, and I have yet to see the finished film because I've convinced myself that I sucked in it. It's a question. It's like you just said. It's a question of awareness. Being aware of what you're doing and looking for those moments that, okay, I've gotten better at this, and I need to do this more, and I need to stop doing that sort of thing. It's almost, you can almost compare it like to an artist with a palette, and okay, this looks good here. Okay, not too much of this, a little more of that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I always want to.
You see, I think personally, to really see, for me, music. Like I'll be honest with you, I was never the most talented person. But I think when it comes to any kind of art, and I don't know what you guys think, but where I found success, and I've seen some of my peers in film, in other areas of art, and in life generally, is you kind of have to live and breathe it. The first thing you do is when you wake up, it's the first thing you have to think about. When you're just having moments to yourself, it's all you have to think about. And it's one of those things where you have to kind of put in the hours, but it's also one of those kind of things where, like, you kind of, where I've seen in the higher levels, is you got to kind of live and die in your own head when it comes to art. Because
very much so.
And it's selfish. I don't, like, most artists will not admit it because it's a very selfish thing to admit. But you have to kind of live in your own head, you know? And it can be very selfish if you have families, if you have friends. But the ones I've seen where who have gotten the most success in art, in all areas of art and in life, in business as well too. But mainly art because it's you're pretty much a solo. It's a solo act. When you're writing something, you're by yourself. You don't have 10 people with you.
No.
It's kind of a selfish art, you know, and you got to be a little bit selfish. You got to kind of live and die in your own head. You got to you got to put in those hours, you know. And it kind of goes back to what we were all talking about earlier. You know, you got to practice because the reality is a hard work ethic will go over talent 9 out of 10 times, in my opinion. When I went to film school, there were some prodigies, people who are very well-spoken, had really great ideas, but just didn't have that work ethic. But the people I see now that are doing well in film were not necessarily the most talented people at first. The guys who were ready to put in the hours and really embrace the whole process and journey of creating something.
Right.
And that's why I would never act in my own films. I did enough of that when I was in the pro wrestling business for all those years, entertaining and so forth, playing a villain. I would rather, my strengths are more in my writings and directing. What would you say your strengths are, Chris? Like, what would you prefer doing? Acting, writing, directing?
Well, I think I enjoy writing the most. Well, I mean, I can't say I enjoy it. I think there's a quote. I want to say it's Dorothy Parker that says, "I hate writing. I love having written." And that's kind of how I feel, because it's really hard work. And but once you're done, it feels so good because you stop and you think, I have created this entire world that wasn't even there. I did this. It's crazy. Acting, I would say, is up there too. I love to do that. I really, really do. It's so much fun to just create a character. Directing, I enjoy a lot because I like to be in control, and I am man enough to say it. Because then you get to call all of the shots, and the good news is that if it sucks, you only have yourself to blame for the most part. Producing is the one thing I loathe probably more than anything else on this earth. I hate producing so much. It's just
because it's more of a managing thing, right? You know, like it's all about managing people, managing time. It's not so much of an art. It's more like you're how can I say, one of those shifters at work who works at an auto plant and is making sure everything is going smoothly. It's a totally different kind of thing.
Exactly. There's not a lot of art to that. It's mostly just business and money, schedules. It's just it's not fun because even when I was a kid, that kind of stuff I was never great at. I was always terrible in every math class I ever had. I hate it. So I just can't do it, and I don't enjoy it. But sometimes you have to, you know, and because if you would like to get things done, sometimes you have to do it yourself. but I guess altogether, I guess I would say writing probably makes me the happiest. At least in the sense of being the most consistently happy. Sometimes acting makes me very happy. Sometimes directing does, but on the whole, I think writing very rarely sort of lets me down.
Now, was there ever a film, because like from experience being in Eddie, the film I just made, I was directing. I had to get out there, and I wrote the original script, and then we went on to another thing, so we had to improvise, editing, everything, all the aspects of the film. Did you ever have to take on the role as just a one-man team to get something together?
Oh God, yes, and sometimes I still do to this day. I remember one day of Triggered, my boom op was not there, and so I had to operate the camera. I had to coach the actors, and I had to record the sound and hold the boom. So it was a nightmare. It was a complete nightmare. Thankfully, it all turned out well, but typically I at least like to have someone to hold the boom. That helps a lot.
And another thing is teamwork. When you have a great team, whether they're actors or behind the scenes, everyone working together really helps as well. And that's another thing I experienced in Eddie is I had a great team. We all put our minds together. We all came up with this last-minute film because we were all set to do the original film, Don't Turn Around. And we had to not do that because of the locations. We had it was the last-minute thing, so we came up with this whole ordeal. And when you have a great team behind you, it really helps the situation because everyone works together. Now, and Blessed Are the Children in all the films you do you have that solid team that everyone chips in and everyone tries to do a part of it?
I do. I really do, and I feel very blessed that I do, because there is a sense of kind of like this sort of almost childlike fun in all of my films. I like to have a team that I know we're going to work really hard, but we're going to have a lot of fun. And I don't shoot long days. I just don't. There are some days where I'm like, okay, we're going to get to the set about noon, and we'll probably be done about 6 or 7. I don't like to shoot all day long because it drives me nuts. And then I think after a certain time, actors get very tired, especially if they're doing a big emotional scene. So it's in their best interest not to get exhausted too. So I'm usually not one for being like, so we're going to get there at 6 in the morning and we're going to leave about midnight. Like that's not me. I think there was one day like that on Triggered, and I thought I was going to lose my mind because we only had this location for one night, and we had to squeeze in like, I'm going to say probably like 30 minutes worth of stuff. So it was insanity. It was absolute nuts. And I think just about everyone that was in the cast had to be there. I mean, it was crazy. And
I think
that was not a fun night.
Yeah, I think I fell across my worst night was when we're filming Eddie, and then we're doing The Creepy World of Strange. We had makeup involved, and we had to shoot both, and we were going through one film to another and shooting those scenes with the makeup involved, getting the other person on set. And then we had one of the actors, actually, we had to use worms in one of the scenes, and the actor, we had the fake worms, and the actor says, well, why don't we just use the real worms? And he shoves the real worms in his mouth, and I'm just like, film it. And we cut it through. But, I mean, we improvised a lot of the things on the set, but I know how it could be a headache of timing. You have that time against you. on a lot of situations, especially with the sun going down and the right mood setting, the right scenes. Oh, it's a nightmare. But
it is.
In entertainment, was there, going back to when you were younger, you always loved to entertain? It seems like you said, you were 6'7", you picked up the camera, So, were you involved in a lot of plays and so forth in school and all that stuff?
I was. I think my first play was it was I think I was like 3 or 4, and I was in like I guess it wasn't really a preschool, it was more like a daycare, and I think my scene had something to do with like Humpty Dumpty or something, and then I think we were required to be in every play up until like 4th grade, so I always had a part. But then after that, I kind of got into film, and I kind of put that stuff kind of on the back burner until I think it was my junior year, and I did the spring musical. I did Anything Goes, and then I did the senior one, which was Into the Woods, and then I kind of like really started to love that again. And so for a time, it was weird because I was going into film school, but I was really in love with acting, and I was trying to be like, okay, do I love film or do I love acting? Can I do them both? And I've just discovered that I think you can. But the problem is I don't like to direct myself. I find that very strange. So I'm not usually in my films unless it's kind of a cameo. But I did have to step into a part in Triggered because the actor dropped out, and there was this whole thing, and it was a day before the shoot, so I couldn't get anyone else. So I said, okay, I guess I'll do this 2-day role, and it turned out okay, but I still kind of wish I didn't have to do it. It was just weird.
And did you, when filming, do you get into the mindset, like I know when I get into the mindset of every day is like what Pete almost said, every day is when you wake up, it's film. Every day when you go to sleep, it's film. It's like always on your mind. Mm-hmm. And is that your, when you have the passion for filming and any sort, is that how it is for you? Like even when you're not on location or even when you're not filming, you always have that thing, I'm going to write, or I'm going to edit, or I'm going to go out there and do something, or you have an idea forming in your head. It's a constant thing that goes around. Is that what you feel also?
Very much so. I really felt it a lot on Triggered because we had such a tight schedule, and I remember one night I wasn't sure exactly how we were going to shoot a scene. I think it was 2 or 3 days away, and I had a dream, and in the dream I saw the entire scene, and it was unbelievable. And then what I saw in my dream became how we shot that scene. And so it's a non-stop thing. And I think a lot of people who don't understand that can get not angry, but just kind of, they're very confused for about 2 or 3 weeks because I don't really contact anyone unless they're involved in the film. I very much keep to myself, and it's all about the film. So sometimes it's kind of alienating, I guess, to my friends and family, but that's how I have to be.
And do you have anything that you want to? I know we have a lot of listeners tonight that are tuning into the show, and you have a lot of fans out there, a lot of friends, a lot of people that also are looking to get into the film business and so forth. What advice can you give them through the road of becoming a filmmaker?
Well, I will say that you should never wait to make a film. Never say, well, once I have just the right script, once I have just the right cast, once I have $5 million to make a film, I will make one. Don't ever do that. Just get out there and make something. It can be a complete piece of shit, but just make something, because with every film you will learn so much. And I really don't think that money really helps to make a great movie. I mean, it can help out a bit to make it more comfortable, but if you have a great script and you have a great cast, you can probably at least make something that's at least semi-watchable. And I think a lot of people get carried away with the idea that, oh, I have to have this much to make my film, or else it's just going to suck. And they never really think about the script or the cast. And those are the two most important things in every film. And so
exactly.
that's what I would say is just start to make stuff and just fail miserably, fail beautifully, because you will learn so much.
Now, you said about the about funding and budgeting and that. Was there a film that you made, being an indie director and so forth, filmmaker, that you went on with no budget at all, or hardly no budget at all? That's what I did with Eddie, was no budget. But or maybe we got it done.
Well,
was there a film that you went through and did something with no budget?
In my earlier days, I made three films. One was called Perversion. The other was called Lock-In. And there's one that's kind of up in the air right now that I started when I was 13. It was called The House of Covered Mirrors. And that was a film that had no budget whatsoever. Most of it didn't even really have a script. It was just this weird improvisational, like, I guess, like, fever dream of a film. And I don't recommend it. I have to say, I learned a lot, so I can never say that it was for nothing. But that particular film, I started when I was 13. I completed it when I was 17. But there's some other stuff going on with the film now, because my producer wants to sort of resurrect it. So he's trying to do like some reshoots on the film, and it was something that was a very difficult experience, because I didn't have any idea what I was doing. I thought I did, but then I would start to cut it together and be like, oh, God. And so that's why it took so long to shoot, because I had no idea what I was doing. So for everything else after that, I was like, okay, I have to have a script that is set in stone from now on, because if you don't, you are so doomed. It's so tough.
I know. That's how, like I said, that's how Eddie was. We were doing one film, and then we couldn't do it, so we had to do Eddie, and we came up with Eddie, and there was no script whatsoever in the whole film. And it was all improvised, all done. But it came out great. But it was so tough. It was tedious. It was tough because you have to make sure angles and you have to off the top of your mind, you have to come up with angles and visionaries and how you want this to be shot, how it can be shot, and then it's like, what if we do this or what if we do that, and everyone chips in and jumps on board. It is a hard thing to do without a script. So you always have to have that script as your floor plan. It's
very hard, but it can be incredibly fun. Especially if, like you said, everyone's on your side, and they're trying to make a great film too. It can be very exhilarating, because you don't know what you're going to come up with, and sometimes you come up with brilliant things, and then sometimes you're like, I wish we had a script. So it's very strange, but I don't think I could personally do that again.
On the plus side, with doing Eddie, the scenes we did not use, we're able to throw into make an anthology out of it. So we got 2 films out of 1, and we actually can go ahead and, the anthology, we actually have this 5 films in there, and it just we got a bonus thing out of the whole project, and it was a lot of fun doing. But it was all because I had a great team and great friends involved into it, and we made it happen. But like Chris was saying, and Peter can agree, and Lucian, you don't have to wait to go ahead and make a film. Now you can shoot a film on your damn phone nowadays. You have all the filters and editing tools on there. You can make films just anywhere.
If I had what everyone has nowadays, I don't know what I would have made when I was a kid. Just the tools that are at everyone's fingertips now. It's unbelievable. So there's really no excuse now.
But there is a double-edged sword to that, because with technology being so accessible, being able to shoot something is a lot easier. Writing music is a lot easier than it was before. There's a lot of access, which makes sometimes the art of filmmaking and music and other forms of art kind of disposable because there's so much coming out.
I would agree with that, yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword. With music especially, I remember when you would have to write music, you'd have to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to get audio equipment, to get an audio board. And now you can pretty much make and mimic the quality that you would with analog gear inside the box. And with film, it's kind of the same. And now you're seeing an influx of filmmakers making tons of stuff, getting distribution, and then kind of watering down the product. So, yes, there's some pluses to that, but there is a negative side to it. With that, it kind of, I wouldn't say it cheapens art because it's great. It gives an outlet for a lot of people to have a voice and have a voice and be able to express themselves through art a lot easier. But there is an other side to that where it does mean there's a lot out there, and it does, in a way, sometimes, not all the time, kind of dilute the product.
I would agree with that, yeah.
But that's its own that's its own debate. It is two-sided, I think.
Now, would you recommend distributing through another company or self-distributing?
Well, I've done both, and I'm still so new to it that I'm not sure if I could really say just yet, but I will say that the group that distributed Blessed has been lovely. So, and they come up with their own art, their own trailer, and they actually get you publicity, which is great, because a lot of them won't. And so I really love that. But on the sort of negative side, you don't have much of a say on how your film is going to be marketed. So, like, for example, the artwork for Blessed is not something I would have personally picked because I think it has nothing to do with the film. But I guess they thought that was going to sell. And so far it has done pretty well, but I still don't know if that was the right direction because it kind of makes it look like a kind of a Rosemary's Baby, like demonic kid film, and that's definitely not what this is.
I like the one with the doll on
so
it. That's my favorite poster.
See, that's the one that I loved. But they said this, and I've heard this a lot. They said that artwork like that looks like it's actually art, like it's been drawn or painted. Apparently, when they try to sell that to places like Best Buy or Walmart, they don't want that because they think it makes the film look like it's old. And I'm like, but I don't get it, because I think it's much better artwork. Personally, I think it sells the film a lot more. But it's kind of like my hands are tied.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that's like me. I choose with these films, I'm pushing for self-distribution. I mean, I did all the poster art, the trailers I cut myself, all the editing and that. It's just putting all that work into it. I want to market it in a way I want to market it and get it out there, because I guess it's my first labor of love, so you want to make sure that you want to go through the stages and make sure it's done properly, and no one's going to take control of it and change it all around and so forth.
Right.
Is there anything coming out that you want to promote quickly?
Well, like I said, Triggered's coming out on June 11th, I believe, on DVD and digital. And the date is not completely set in stone yet, but that's just what I've heard. So I do think it'll definitely be somewhere in June for sure, though. I'm going to be working on A Stranger Among the Living for the next few months, and hopefully Triggered will play in some festivals within the next few months. But so far, I'm not sure what those would be yet, but it's definitely possible. And right now, that's really all I've got.
What about any websites or that you want to share?
Oh no, I don't really have a website, but I've got a Facebook and I've got a Instagram, and that's pretty much all I do. I don't really like the Twitter thing. It just doesn't really.
Yeah.
It's not really my thing.
No, I agree with you there. But Chris, it was great having you on the show tonight. Like I say, you're an awesome person, very talented, big fan of yours. Always following your work, and all the listeners that tuned in tonight, they can agree that you are a really hard worker and you put out a good product, and we all enjoy it.
Thank you so much.
To have you on the show again in the future.
Absolutely.
Whether it's a special co-host or a regular talking about your career, and maybe we could be you on when Trigger's out. We could talk about Trigger a little bit.
I would love to.
Thank you for tuning in, stopping in as a special guest tonight on K&S Society Talk Live.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Been a great guest.
I'll keep in touch, and like I say, I'm always following your work. So once again, thank you, Chris, for tuning in tonight and becoming our special guest for the evening.
It was my pleasure.
Right. And you have a good night.
You too.
And we were speaking to Chris Moore from Blessed Are the Children. And also tonight, we're sad to say we lost a great actor in Dick Miller. Dick Miller we lost him, and his passing is really sad. He played in great films like Gremlins, The Howling, Demon Knights. He had so many great roles in film. And it's a special tribute to Dick Miller.
Parle-moi. Regardez-moi. Il nous reste encore un mois. M'écouterez-vous, enfin?
I'll never do nothing to you, please.
Where are you headed?
Of course, what else? They are all right?
Well, I've had better.
Well, this is a small shop.
Oh, that's okay.
Bob, I'm going to have to get back to you on this. We got a situation down here. What's going on? I haven't had dreams like this since I was a kid.
There's a real gremlin in my cage!
I think I must have done 4 or 5 pictures before I realized I was a movie actor.
And that was a special clip from Dick Miller, a tribute. We lost him today, a great actor in many, many films. How about you, Peter? You still there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm back. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. I got cut off, but I'm back.
But yeah, did you hear today? We lost Dick Miller, passed away.
Yeah, no, I know. We saw. I just read on Facebook. He just passed away. It's really sad.
Yeah, he was such a great actor. Played in many, many films. I mean, there's did cameos in a lot of films as well.
Oh yeah,
so,
he's been in some great ones.
So what have you been watching lately?
Me? That's a good question. What did I watch lately? I watched The Black Klansman, the new Spike Lee movie. Loved it. I thought it was great. Definitely one of the year's best. I was going over my year's top 10 films of the year. I'm still kind of like finishing off my list. And that was one I had to, I have to hand in the list in a couple of days. There's about 2 or 3 other films I need to see. But that definitely was great. But yeah, I was going over my best list. I'm going to be handing it in shortly in the next couple of days. And it looks like the best film I saw all year. I'll give you guys my top 3. Number 3 being Roma, Spanish film. Saw at the film festival back in September. Second best film I saw was Hereditary, and if you guys can believe it, the best film that I saw all year was A Star Is Born. Best film that I saw this year. Shocking.
Yeah,
I didn't think I would.
That's getting a lot of that's getting a lot of good reviews. A Star Is Born.
My friend.
I mean,
Star Is Born. It's not a movie that I thought I would love. I actually I watched that movie. I'll never forget that. That's gonna, when you see special films, you always remember when you watched it. Where you were when you watched it. What theater did you go to? What time did you turn off it? When you rented the movie or bought it or even downloaded it or whatever? I had finished maybe a 12, 13-hour session, and my wife, and this is late. This was around 4 a.m. in the morning. And my wife just happened to be up, giving me cut eye, being like, boom, like, why aren't you spending time with me? Why are you working? You're a workaholic. And I was like, okay, you know what? I was like, I wasn't done working. I was like, I pretty much, I should go on my box, see what's on demand. This was a while back, actually, about 5 months ago. Before the news, like November, so maybe 3 months ago, or maybe even October. And I was like, okay, let's just watch Star Is Born. I'll go on my phone and email. I didn't think it'd be a film I would like. 2 minutes into it, I was totally thrown into the film. I loved it so much. I had goosebumps watching it. It was such a great film. One that really, really stuck with me. I thought the performances were A+ all around. I've never watched a film, though, that gave me goosebumps like A Star Is Born did. Bradley Cooper, Sam Shepard, Lady Gaga. this isn't a film that if you had asked me last year or the year prior that your favorite movie would be a movie starring Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga, I bet a movie that had been remade 2 times prior, I would have said F off. There's no way. But yeah, man, I thought it was a journey. I thought it was a journey. I thought the performances were A+. Sam Shepard was amazing in it.
But yeah, I'm gonna check that out. And Sam Elliott is up for an award with that, isn't he?
Yeah. He's up for an award, and man, I was crying throughout the whole movie. The last 30 minutes of the 20 minutes were just, I mean, it was a tearjerker. It was emotional. I really liked it. I hope it wins Best Picture. I know that Bohemian Rhapsody won the Golden Globe, and Rami Malek, I think is his name.
I didn't like that. Yeah, Rami Malek is a great actor, but I really didn't like the movie. I
thought it was so
a lot
garbage.
of people behind it and like it, but I just can't. I mean, I like Queen's
music,
but I just didn't like the film.
Critics did it. It was panned by critics. Audiences love it. It's one of those ones. My biggest issue with it, man, is I was going to use the word vanilla, but I didn't. That's probably not the right word. But it was a very safe approach at the film. It's a very safe approach, and from what I've read, the band members had a lot of creative control. Sacha Baron Cohen was supposed to be Freddie Mercury. Then he left the project because as soon as the band members went on, they started covering up, or they started not covering a lot of topics that they wanted to cover in the film originally. And really, the original, the thing with Freddie Mercury with Bohemian Rhapsody, he lived a very crazy lifestyle, and that crazy lifestyle is something that you need to portray in the film because that was who he was. There were scenes, there were his parties were legendary, and his drug use was legendary, and they really didn't go over that, and I can respect why they didn't. But you're also telling half the story. Again, there's moments in it, I think I said on Facebook, it just felt like a big budget Saved by the Bell episode. I thought it was garbage.
I was not a fan of it, but I will check out.
I wasn't even that big on his performance, to be honest. I thought it was really over the top, if that's the right word. But hey, man, I don't know. What do I know?
But we have a lot of great shows lined up. Next week we'll be joined by Ralph Koninsky, who did There's Nothing Out There, and did a lot of not independent films, but a lot of films in the 90s and 2000, some films in the 80s. He'll be joining us next week. On February 13th, we'll be joined by Chris Greenway, who does Midnight Hour TV, Tub Party Massacre, another independent film director. Caleb Thomas will be joining us on February 20th. He played in a lot of great films. He played in Tom Tucker's The Terror of Hallows Eve, and also many others. We'll be joined by Buddy Galore, who is known in the Britain area of being a great entertainer and also a hostess. Lucian, you know about Buddy Galore. You're a follower of his also. Great entertainer. Also be joined by Eamon Hardiman, who will be joining us on March 6th. And he was the director of the film Pork Chop, which was an independent horror film. And on March 13th, he'll be joined by Impact Wrestling, Congo Kong, who captured the world title in Impact Wrestling, which was formerly known as TNA Wrestling. He'll be joining us on March 13th. And on March 20th, we'll be doing a special tribute to Glow's Matilda the Hun, who is not doing that good health-wise. We'll be doing a tribute show, and we'll be joined by almost all the Glow Girls doing a special segment, joining our show for that one on March 20th to pay tribute to Matilda the Hun. So that's going to be great.
Guys,
so we have a lot of great shows.
Passed away today. Legendary R&B singer James Ingram. also passed away
yes,
today. I
I
don't know
heard.
if you guys remember who he is, but his music was featured on Last American Virgin. He had hits like Just Once. Great singer.
And yeah, I read about that also. And Lucian, we didn't hear much from you today, though. But how did you like tonight's show?
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, I loved hearing him talk about his experiences both working as a stage actor and as a filmmaker as well. And I just love listening to these independent filmmakers sort of lay out what they had to go through to get get their films made, and his commitment as well, just to try to roll with the punches. If one location cancels out on you, try to find another one as quickly as possible. That's a lot to be said for that flying by the seat of your pants kind of filmmaking.
He's a great guy, and I see what I like is the approach of independent filmmaking. It is a really hard and tedious thing to do, but also it's very rewarding. Just like you, Peter, with music, you told me earlier that you finally reached that point, the point you're at now. And it takes a while to get there, but you finally reached it. And
20 years.
It's awesome. Just to know that you got where you're happy. But yeah, 20 years. 20 years it took you to get there, but still in between it was a wild ride, and you had to enjoy it.
Let me tell you, man. Let me tell you one thing. I'm not trying to be narcissistic about it, but I will just give one suggestion for all artists coming up. It's a road that you don't know, Some people it takes a few years. Some people it takes 20 years, like myself. And in between that, there's a lot going on. And it's just, if I was to give a suggestion, and I think our earlier guest gave kind of the same suggestion, is you just got to keep at it, man. If you feel like you've got something special, you just got to keep at it. And it sounds corny, and I understand it's a very cliched saying, but it's a cliched saying for a reason.
And we have only like 60 seconds left to the show, but like I said, just keep at it. And Peter is a fine example. Chris is a fine example. Lucian is still working on getting the films out there. Well, yeah. I just go through much, and like you always get after me. It's hard being a one-man show. And like you always get after me, I have to start focusing on building more of a structure, and that's what I'm working on every day. But those of you who tuned in tonight, thanks. We had a large audience. Thanks for tuning in. And as always,
you guys.
Tune in every Wednesday for K&S Society Talk Live.